Welcome to the Yoga Teacher Circle podcast. I'm your host, Taylor Ray, yoga teacher. You are needed now more than ever, and your unique voice, message, and offering needs to be shared with the world. In this podcast, we'll talk about all things related to teaching yoga to help you thrive doing what you love most, teaching yoga. So let's dive in. That's really what this is. This is a safe space, judgment-free, to show up and to share anything that is needed right now. So I thank all of you so much for being here, truly. Before I pass it over to you, Tiana, I'm so excited to have Tiana here today. Tiana is also a yoga teacher here in Phoenix, Tiana Hill. I've known her like 2 to 3 years now, and she's just one of the most beautiful, grounding, calming teachers. Her classes are so amazing. If you haven't had the chance, I highly recommend you go to her class. And before we dive in a little bit deeper, I do just want to take a minute to ground and to do a short grounding breath work and meditation to help us arrive into this space, okay? So let's all find a space that we can sit up nice and tall. Soften your eyes closed. And feel yourself settle into your body. Arrive into your body. Use your breath. And create a deeper sense of awareness, of connection to your breath now. And let's all take a nice slow inhale through the nose. Big sigh out. Beautiful. One more time. Nice deep breath in. And exhale. What are you present to right now in your body, in your mind, in your heart? Ask yourself, how am I right now? Choose 3 words to describe and to name how you're feeling right now. And see if you can soften into spaces that are gripping, or to simply observe spaces that are gripping and holding. The world needs us now more than ever. As light workers, energy dealers, healers, and space holders, we are being called to expand and to rise up during this time of awakening. We are being called to expand. And I see you. You have answered the call. You're here. Yoga teaches us that we are all one, that we are all connected. But no one is free until we are all free. So please acknowledge yourself for showing up for this conversation, showing up for the Black community, and for growth and expansion. Take one last deep breath in. Exhale, let it go. When you feel ready, take your time and softly open your eyes. Beautiful. So again, thank you for being here. We want to also start this off by saying, I am no expert on this, on anti-racism. I am just learning, okay? So by me having this space and this conversation does not make me have all the answers, and we're all in this together, okay? So, but what I do know is I can't not do anything. That's why I'm doing this. And I really, truly invite you, all of you, to call me up and call me out if something I say or share doesn't align, okay? I'm just really, so grateful that we can all have this conversation in a safe space. So thank you so much. So today what we're covering, this isn't necessarily an educational conversation on anti-racism, but it's, of course, we're going to be talking about it. In this conversation, we're gonna start with what spiritual bypassing is and looks like. And then I'm gonna pass it to Tiana to speak openly and to share her experience, her story as a Black yoga teacher in a predominantly white yoga community. So I'm so grateful for Tiana to be here to share with us. And we also need to talk about how we need to acknowledge the truth as yoga teachers and what it looks like to create a more diverse yoga community. So what are those action steps actually look like, okay? So before I do pass it to you, Tiana, I want to share my screen because I have some info about spiritual bypassing that I want us all to look at. So I'm going to share screen right now. Okay, looks like you guys can see my screen. Yeah, thumbs up. Cool.
Yep.
So spiritual bypassing, is this a new term for anyone? You can just nod if this is new, yes or no. Okay, I see a couple of us that it is, a few of us. So I don't think that we can have the conversation without acknowledging what this truly means and looks like in our lives first. Okay, so spiritual bypassing is a tendency to use spiritual ideas and practices to sidestep or avoid facing unresolved emotional issues, psychological wounds, and unfinished developmental tasks. The term was introduced in the early 1980s by John Wellwood, a Buddhist teacher and psychotherapist. So it's a defense mechanism and something that can happen without us even noticing it or realizing it. And it happens a lot in the community of, yogis, yoga teachers, space holders, energy workers. So our minds can easily trick us into believing that what we are doing is the right thing to do. And it shields us from the truth and disconnects us from our feelings. So some examples of spiritual bypass is only wanting to talk about or spread positivity, jumping into happy thoughts only promoting love and light, or good vibes only, right? So we see that sticker floating around, good vibes only, right? So that right there is not acknowledging the dark as well. There's light and dark, we need both. Avoiding the shadow side, okay? So avoiding the shadow side, which is within all of us. We cannot deny it. Avoiding discomfort and what is called lower feelings, right? Or people might call bad. I truly don't believe there are any good or bad feelings. They just are, right? So, but they are uncomfortable, okay? And that's why we want to avoid. So uncomfortable feelings like anger or grief, sadness, trauma, anxiety, depression. For example, sometimes self-care is actually about taking care of ourselves, right? We check in and we see, wow, I really need to slow down. I need time for myself. And in that space of slowing down, we listen, we do our inner work, okay? And then there's times where we use self-care and we are really just checking out or disassociating and using yoga. Let's say yoga, for example. I need to go to a yoga class right now because I can't handle what I'm feeling in my body and mind. So I'm gonna go to a really intense power flow class, sweat it all out. But that is like a distraction. Sometimes it can also help us to actually enter into our bodies though. So it's just about understanding intention. I want you to take a minute to reflect if you have your notes with you and you want to journal it, right? So this is like a really small conversation on spiritual bypass just to start our bigger conversation. If this is new for you and you want to take a minute to think about like, where has this shown up in your life? And is this showing up for you right now in the Black Lives Matter movement, in starting to unravel systemic racism for you? Okay, so take a minute and think on that, reflect on it. So as you're reflecting on this, I will share with you something that I know comes up for me that I have to constantly check myself with. As a yoga teacher, we're all helpers. So I know that I'm not going to speak for all of us, but from what I know from my yoga teacher friends as well, is we like to help people, right? And sometimes that helping can be my way of spiritually bypassing my own shit, my own discomfort. So I show up to teach class. I stay busy teaching others, and that's actually can be a lot more comfortable for me than facing my own stuff, right? So that's something that can really come up for us as yoga teachers. Anger can be really beautiful, right? It's not a bad thing. And I do want to I love this that I read the other day about sacred rage. Sacred rage is connecting to the fierceness within to defend the suffering. Okay, so I love that. What does yoga teach us? Yoga teaches us to embrace all aspects of ourselves, to sit with and to sit in what is, to go through it and not around it. So this practice teaches us to build our capacity to hold it all, not only good vibes only, right? Love and light. So we sit in it, we embrace the shadow, we embrace the light. So this is Tiana Hill, you guys. She's amazing. And again, thank you so much for being here, Tiana. I'd love for you to start with just sharing more about yourself and being a yoga teacher, and then just start going into what your experience has been like teaching in the white community as a Black yoga teacher. Okay. So thank you, Tiana.
Thank you, Taylor. Hello, everybody. Some familiar faces. Hi, lots of new faces as well. So I have been practicing yoga for about 20 years, and I've been teaching since 2012. I studied under Dave and Cheryl Oliver, and that was an amazing experience. I was not the only Black person. There were 3 of us. And so we had, it was like summer camp with everybody, but it always is nice to have people who look like you. So that was a wonderful experience. And I've started teaching right after that. I've been teaching at Fluid Yoga for since 2012 with Mark here, my friend Mark. And I was teaching at Mountainside for the past 5 years, and I teach privates. I also teach health and wellness, so I'm a vegan and plant-based educator as well. So that's one of my passions. I'm a mom. I have a 22-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter. I guess I can just start in on my story on me teaching in a very white community. There's a handful, I think, of Black teachers in the Valley. And so I don't see a lot of people who look like me, whether I'm teaching or as teachers, but also students. Every once in a while, there will be somebody who walks in the room who is a little more melanated, like Tracy, for example. Like I saw her walking out of the yoga studio, taking a different class as I was coming in to teach. And I literally scooped her up and I'm like, "You're staying, right?" And she did. And she's been coming ever since, and it's lovely. And I love all of my students, all of them. And there's a connection that I build with them. And I also believe that representation matters. It opens up the door for more people to access this practice. I believe that wellness should be for everybody, and that yoga is inclusive. And we say that, and I believe that we believe that, but how do we make that so? Like our community up here in North Phoenix and Scottsdale is not primarily Black. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that necessarily people who do live in, say, maybe Blacker areas would come up here anyway. But there are people of color who do live up here who are not going to walk into one of our studios because they don't feel that yoga is for them. The magazine covers, there's nobody who looks like them on the magazine covers. I know Taylor and I talked about like Lululemon and Athleta and all of these brands marketed towards people, like white people. So getting to the root of it, and if I'm not an anti-racist teacher either, like Taylor mentioned, This is just my experience, and I don't know what the answer is necessarily, how to change that at that level. But as teachers, I think from my experience, what I've seen from being a student, going into some yoga studios, is that I think as teachers, we can do maybe a better job at making people feel seen. So people of color who come into the studio, making them feel seen by meeting them before or after class, not just letting them walk right out without saying anything, which has happened on so many occasions. Like, I'm the only one who looks like me in the room. Yoga in some instances is very cliquey. So you walk in, you already feel left out and unseen, and then no one even talks to you. So that's telling me maybe you're not welcome here. And maybe that was not an intention at all, but that's what it feels like. Black people already feel like yoga is not for them, and people of color, it's not for them. That's not what they see. So when you're not even acknowledged, I feel like that's furthering that message.
And Tiana,
yeah.
2 questions for you. How has that made you feel as a student personally? Like when you maybe started yoga before you became a teacher, right? When you went to a class and you felt like the outsider and you felt like, wow, no one's like me here. Like, what does that make you feel like? Or what did that make you feel?
Well, it's interesting because I think that these instances, a lot of them have happened after I've already been a teacher.
Okay.
How it made me feel was that I would do better as a teacher, and I would not. I mean, I don't think I did that to begin with, but just to be more mindful that everyone should be seen. Like if someone comes in my class that I've never seen before and they're brown or black or whatever, I'm going to go out of my way to try to make them feel welcome so that they'll come back, because if they have that experience, they're most likely not going to come back.
Yeah. And then another question for you is, and Tracy, like also feel free to jump in, please. I want this to be a really inclusive conversation where we're all part of it as well. Why do Black and brown people not feel like yoga's for them? I've heard, Tracy, you've mentioned this before as well, right? That your friends have said that. So, either one, maybe from both of you, if you do want to share anything on that.
I think, like I mentioned before, that it starts at the top, that it looks, we look at the magazine covers. And I've seen instances or read about Yoga Journal, I believe it was, had one cover with a Black woman, but they also put up a cover of the white woman just in case, because they knew that the Black cover was not going to sell as well.
Yeah. So
things like that, it's so telling that it starts at that level. And it's marketed towards white women. Wellness is for white people. It's not for everybody else, at least not in this realm. I don't know. Tracy, what have you heard? Different experience?
No, actually, it's the same. Your perspective is based on what you see. And so when you're blasted with the commercials and the magazines and the media, that's what you take in. So maybe it isn't something I should be doing.
Yeah, so I think what's really important here is, like Tiana said, right? Representation matters. It's really hard, personally, it's really hard to live where I live, and it is a mostly white community. And I reached out to a friend who is biracial, and I said, do you know any yoga teachers here in this community that are active in the community? I'd love to talk to them that are Black. She said, honestly, I don't. And that has to change. And so what do you think can help create that change as yoga teachers?
Well, something that I did, because that was one of my takeaways. There's not enough Black people that are teaching yoga. So I went to Instagram and Facebook, and I found a lot of Black girl yoga as one site on Instagram I follow. And I can't think of any other examples on the top of my head, but just to expose myself that there's this collection of Black people out there that are doing yoga as students and teaching yoga all over the place. And although I may live in a predominantly white community, it is out there because, like you said, Taylor, the situation is I live in a predominantly white neighborhood and people aren't going to come up here to take a class. It's less likely to happen. So to get that exposure, I guess reaching out through social media has been one way for me to do that.
Yeah.
And just to create that awareness, it is out there. Those people are out there.
Yeah. Thanks, Tracy.
Well, and yeah, they're out there. How do we draw them in here, into our community? And that's where I just don't know. Like, I didn't grow up in North Phoenix. I grew up in South Phoenix and in Central Phoenix. And so it was very diverse.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a few yoga studios down there, but to come up here, it's just not going to happen. But there are people who do live up here who are still not coming into our classes. And I don't know if it's, like Trish said, through social media and putting different people who look different than you up on your page or in your stories, or talking with them and having these conversations and just showing a different side of it, and not our beautiful poses and our white bodies, but more than that, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Showing that that it is a welcoming community and that wellness should be for everybody. And if we're not healing everybody, then we're never going to heal this, as individuals, as our collective.
Yeah.
So it's really important.
That's really good. And I'm getting from Anonymous, I'm getting a question, and I think it's a really important question, right? It says, why am I to reach out specifically to people of color? I try to include and connect with everyone. I have not been looking at their skin color. I feel that this is asking me to now stop treating everyone as just people and now give extra attention to people of color. So this confuses me. Tiana, if you want to answer this one, and then I can also chime in.
Why it's important? I was going to say, I guess that would be on an individual level. Why is it important to you? Why are we here? Why is this work important to make it inclusive for everybody? And I think what I said is that if we're not letting everybody know that they're included, they're going to feel left out. Nothing changes. So we're still in the same boat that we're in right now. So I think acknowledging that people are different. I mean, yes, we're all one at the core, but we are different. We're coming from different backgrounds, different lifestyles. We're not the same. So to acknowledge people that are different in whatever way, in color right now, I think it's just really important. And I think that's how we grow and how we're going to get out of situations that we're in right now. But I think the question really comes to why. Why is it important to you?
I know that growing up personally, I remember hearing from people like, no, you don't see color, right? We're all the same. And it's, people have different colors, and that is okay to actually acknowledge that and to say, I see you. I'm white, you're black. There's discomfort around language. And so what I'm learning is to break through those barriers of being okay saying that, right? Like, I was on a webinar the other day, and the guy, he was black, and he was like, literally, like, call me black. Like, it's black and white. Like, I'm black, you're white. You don't need to even say anything else, right? Like, we need to break down the discomfort of languaging and get comfortable just saying it like what it is. And he said, and if you say you don't see color, then I don't feel you see me, right? So then you're not seeing them for who they are. And it's not less, better, right? Like, it just is. And please, you guys, drop it in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, I really do invite you to. Again, this is a safe space. There's no wrong, there's no bad here, okay? Does anyone else want to speak to that?
Oh, Lynn's hand is up.
Yeah, please, Lynn.
Okay. Hi, guys. Hi, Tiana. Yeah, this for me is huge because I grew up the same way. You don't see color growing up in California. This is like, so I've never said black or white. And I feel like maybe for me, when that was acknowledged over the past couple of days, that was huge for me, because I'm like, wait, no, that goes against, it's uncomfortable. That goes against everything that I learned. But it brought awareness to me about how to look at people of color and what they are struggling with. I never even really knew, So this for me has just been so eye-opening, and the whole spiritual bypassing as well, because I'm always this positivity and everything. And when I really put myself in your shoes, in the Black community shoes, I cried for 3 days. I was like, my heart just cracked wide open. I'm gonna cry right now, just thinking about it. But so thank you. Yeah, thank you for bringing that awareness, because to me, I was like, no, you just don't see color. Everybody's a human being. I've always treated everybody like that my whole life, but I never looked or thought about what it must be like to be on that side and the struggles, So.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah.
Tiana, you want to say anything else to that?
I think just as Len said, and I think that's a lot of maybe where we are, not purposely, but the spiritual bypassing of just saying, love and light to everybody. And I don't see color. But I think acknowledging who people are, and that they are different, and that they, Black or a person of color, I think is really important. And it's part of doing the work and saying, and not just brushing it under, like we're all the same. And I mean, we're just not. And I think that by seeing that, you're acknowledging what someone else is going through.
Right. I think what's helped me is learning the history more and more, right? Diving deeper into the history of what it's really been like for the Black community. We aren't the same. And underneath, we are the same. And the goal is that we can all be equal and be treated fairly. That's what we're working towards, but that's not happening, right? So that's hasn't been happening, and it's not happening. And that's why we have to acknowledge that the Black Lives Matter movement is happening, because it hasn't been equal. So we have to bring we have to shine light on what hasn't been working. We have another question here. Tiana, in your opinion, how do we reach out to folks of color and offer scholarships and spaces in our workshops, retreats without being a white savior? This is a great question.
That is a great question. And I don't know the answer necessarily, because I am seeing a lot of that come up, like, scholarships for this and scholarships for that. And it's, it's like we can't afford it. For one, there's that white savior, I'm going to save you because you need saving, because I'm still up here and you're down here, is how that sounds. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how to, I think it's before it's like scholarships and come to my workshops and things like that, it's about connecting with them in a really authentic way, and you getting to know them getting to know you, before we're thinking of how can I save you without, but that's the only way, I guess. Because that's kind of exactly what it is sounding like the savior. So before doing any of that, like take a step back and let's come at it maybe a little bit slower and more authentically, building relationships.
Yeah, that's a really good point, is building genuine connection in relationships instead of coming at something like, I'm here to save, I'm the helper. Mm-hmm. Here, let me give you this thing, right? So it's like, it's not easy. It's going to take time. What I can say personally, right? So like I facilitate 200-hour yoga teacher trainings, and I now recognize that a blind spot has been opened for me, in the sense that one of the ways I word, my community is it's an inclusive community. And I know that I put a lot of emphasis on yoga for every body. I really want all bodies to feel welcome, to feel like they can show up, sizes, shapes, colors, age, right? And I recognize now I've put a lot of emphasis in a good way, and I won't change that, on like body positivity and body image, because I know that the yoga community can really come off as like a thin thin body thing and make people feel less than. So that's been huge for me, but I have not, and I can acknowledge it, I have not done the work for all races, right? I have not, and I see that now. So now that's some of my work. And so I truly, truly believe that all yoga teacher trainings, I know that, I'm on here. Who else leads yoga teacher trainings on here? Let's see.
Jen is here.
Jen also leads yoga teacher trainings, right? I really believe that YTT needs to have this conversation, diversity, inclusion, and social justice within YTT, even if it's just the start, it's a 2-hour, 3-hour thing, right? And I promise that I will be adding that into my trainings going forward. So I think that that's something as well, is to start this conversation early as new teachers enter into the world as well. Okay, so I think as white yoga teachers, we need to first show we are an ally, speak out on your platforms. Yeah, Jen, that's really, really important, right? Yes, we need to speak up, we need to speak out. And I know it's scary, like it's really scary having this conversation. Like before I got on, I was like, what am I doing? And it has to happen. Right. So Tiana, what do you think about that as well? Teachers speaking up, right? So like, how does that make you feel when you see other white yoga teachers speak up, speak out, and take action? What does that feel like for you?
I think when you're reading something or listening to someone, if it sounds authentic and like, why are they doing it? I think that's what it really comes down to. Why is it important to you? Do you want to see this change? Does it matter if these people are in your class or not?
Mm-hmm.
So coming from that, and if it is important work to you because you want to make a change, a bigger change, then do it. But I think that it absolutely has to come from your heart, and that I think that will show through.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
and take it slow. I mean, it doesn't have to be like, I'm going to change the world overnight and every post is about this. And, I think to really do the work on yourself and acknowledge the ways in which you might be a part of, what's happening, what can you uncover to do better, and not just because that could just be putting stuff out there just to put it out there. But if you're not really doing the work and it doesn't mean much to you other than you feel like you should do something, I think that I think that could come across.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because at first, when everything, I was introduced to this work like 6 years ago from Off the Mat Into the World, Sean Korn, Hala Curry, and Sterling. And that was the intro for me into the world of social justice and diversity. And it was so massive and terrifying for me that I had no capacity yet to bring it in, like I wanted to, but I didn't know what and how, and it was overwhelming. And then since everything has risen to the surface recently, at first you feel like, wow, I have to do something, or I should, because that's what people are saying to do, right? Mm-hmm. And then when I committed to doing the work and going deeper and educating myself and listening and doing everything possible, even when it was so uncomfortable and going through the pain, that now it's scary, but it's also easier to show up as an ally and speak up and out, because I have taken time to process and to understand and educate, right? So I think that what you're saying, Tiana, the education part, the truly understanding it is the first step. 100%.
If you aren't already a member, I'd love for you to join me in the free private Facebook group for yoga teachers. Just simply search Yoga Teacher Circle on Facebook. Most of these episodes are recorded live in the Facebook group, where you can ask questions in real time and connect with the Yoga Teacher Circle community. Now, back to the episode.
Here's another question. What themes would you suggest we weave into our classes to recognize this inclusion? We all do this when we teach, but now specifically in your classes, what are the themes, if you have any?
I don't have themes. So For myself, I don't know what that would look like. That would be something to think about. But I mean, if anybody else does, that would be great to hear. I don't know what that would look like.
I think that you can really weave in a lot of the yama and niyama right now. Ahimsa, satya, so non-harming, truthfulness, tapas, sitting in the fire of discomfort, right? I think that weaving those into classes right now can be really beneficial because you use it, it's related to yoga, of course, and it's acknowledging the truth, what's happening, right? What else? Does anyone else have different themes you're working with right now?
So,
yeah, Crystal.
I just wanted to speak up. So that was my question. And it just kind of hit me because I am the same. I don't really have specific themes that I go into my classes with, rarely. Mine come from books. So it just like hit me right there. I'm like, wait a minute, okay, I don't have specific themes. Where does my teaching come from besides my sitting? And a lot of it is from my books. I've been doing a lot of sharing of Pixie Lighthorse right now, specifically, and of course Dana Faulds and her poetry. So maybe that would be something that's helpful, is to provide teachers or us with lists of other resources that they use that do come from Black authors, that are out there. And maybe, the words don't always have to come out to say, Black, but rather that integrativeness that, yeah, we are all one. We are all the same. Yes, this comes from an author with a Black skin. This bag of bones is the same, but that covering has that. And these are the words that I share and that I put out there, so that, that's material I would love to just kind of get my hands on and study more and read more, and then be able to open that up and share and say, this is who the author is.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great idea, is to, again, amplify Black voices, right? We don't need to recreate it. Let's already share what's out there. I have a raised hand from Zach. Yeah, Zach.
Hello.
Hi, Zach.
So I was just thinking, I read something the other day about, we all know that, there's a lot of trauma and in the Black community, and even something I didn't even realize, even when there's not an imminent threat, there's still that awareness of the potential for a threat to your life or your well-being. So I just think this kind of weaves into the themes too, including like hip openers, chest openers, poses that allow you to settle with that discomfort. I know for me personally, when I have a lot of stress, my hips are just like so agonizingly tight. So even if you have like a yang practice, I think it's good to, contribute maybe a little bit towards the beginning or the end or both, just to kind of address that, especially in this time. Even if people are not willing to really address what's going on, it's like subconsciously it's still there, and I think they'll still benefit from that.
Yeah,
I love that. I think that's great. Yeah, thank you, Zach. I also, I wanted to give you some more like kind of action steps. Again, this isn't like, this is what I think necessarily. This is what I've really absorbed and collected, learning from different teachers, Black teachers, and how we as a community can take action together. How can we create a diverse and inclusive yoga community? So the first thing is to tell the truth. Tell the truth about where you have been. So practicing satya. I relate this in my own personal way to when I'm 8.5 years sober, but I couldn't get sober until I first acknowledged that I had a problem, right? Like I had to tell the truth, like I'm not okay. What I've been doing is not okay, and I need to move forward. So asking yourself, and this isn't, I don't want you to feel forced to go here, but these are just questions to ask yourself and contemplate. Where am I right now in my teachings, my classes, my messaging, my awareness? Who am I surrounding myself with? I realized like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. I'm only surrounding myself with white people. I haven't been listening enough. to other experiences, and I need to. So coming back to, Ryan and Tiana, what you're saying, creating genuine connection, like getting out of our own safety bubble, right? And like going out and connecting. And then the second thing is to educate yourself, attend trainings, workshops on social justice, racism and oppression. Go all the way back and understand the historical trauma on the Black community. So first, tell the truth. Where have I been? Do I need to do something different? Now, educate, dig, understand. Tiana, you said this, representation matters. Include diversity within your promo material for events and classes, and only if you're actually doing the work to create a diverse community. It's not enough if I were to say, okay, for my next YTT, I'm going to put up a stock photo and make sure that I have different colors and a Black person in it, but that's all I did. So that's on my website, and I hope that I'm visually showing representation, but are my actions matching what I want to achieve? And if they aren't, then I should not be putting that up there if I'm truly not trying to create a diverse community. I also recognize that I want to bring in a Black yoga teacher onto my team of teachers for YTT, right? Like I truly do want representation, and I want to do my part. So I think that's really important. So like I said earlier, I think YTTs need to have social justice, diversity, and inclusivity discussions and trainings. I think that's really important. Like I already have an emphasis on body positivity and inclusivity. Now I need to add social justice. To go outside of your own community, connect to the BIPOC community in person and on social media. So listen, have authentic conversations, and create genuine connections. I started following some really amazing people in the BIPOC community on social media, and like realize now, like, wow, my feed is so much more interesting actually, because I'm listening to so many different people, different kinds of people, and I love that. And to practice ahimsa, so non-harming, to speak up when you see racism, question and ask studio owners about their actions to create a diverse community. I had sent out my newsletter, not the yoga teacher only newsletter, but a newsletter for my general student population. And one of the responses, and it was about this, and it was about how I feel about it and the steps I want to be taking. And I got a response from someone who's a yogi, and she's Black. And she just thanked me, and she said, thank you so much for taking the time to understand what my life has been like and my ancestors' life has been like. She's like, all you can do is speak up. When you see it, when you hear it, speak up. That's your part. That's what you can do. And I said, okay, I promise you I will. And, this is what's interesting is that's the newsletter that I got the most unsubscribes from, which is okay. So I lost the most people from that one newsletter than I have ever. Mm. And I'm okay with that, So also if you're committed to doing this, don't be afraid to lose people, because they aren't your people. And it's unfortunate because I really wish and I hope at some point they're open to doing this or looking at it. But if they're not right now, they're not my people, and I'm okay that they're gone. So to become something in the future, it takes effort in the now. We have to do the work now for our future. And this conversation and work of dismantling racism, creating a diverse yoga community, and understanding your privilege is long-term work. This is long-term. It will not be easy. It will be hard and scary and messy, emotional and exhausting. So do not give up if you're committed to it. This isn't a week-long thing, a month-long thing of posting a Black square once and that's it. This is if you're in it, you gotta commit to the rest of your life. And tapas, the practice, this niyama, asks us to stay when things are uncomfortable. to stay in the unpleasant situation instead of running away or hiding from the challenge. We are invited right now to sit in the discomfort and to do the work. Before I want to open up the last little bit to some Q&A, but I have resources for you if you're interested in them. And I can also make sure I send this to you in an email after, so don't worry right now. But these are some great resources. If you are committed to educating and to looking deeper, I would really start with some of these. And I highly recommend this TED Talk right here with Michelle Johnson. She's also a yogi and a yoga teacher, and she just speaks so beautifully about this. And then the one on the bottom is Justice in June. I just found this yesterday, and I am amazed at whoever put this together. This has like everything you need to start right now. And they've got these sections where it shows, do you have 10 minutes, like 20 minutes, or 45 minutes a day to spend on learning and educating yourself? And then you click that, and then it like jumps you to different sources on the page that you can spend 10 minutes today and do something to educate and to take yourself further, right? So this requires a lot of action. So I will send this to you. So we've got Alicia saying, Dr. Gail Parker, restorative yoga for ethnic and race-based stress and trauma can be pre-ordered on Amazon. Yeah, that's another great resource. So if you look in the chat, Alicia's got some other really good resources. Minez, I can unmute you. Let's see if that works. Or
are you able to hear me?
Yes, hi. Am I saying your name?
Okay, hi. Mina.
Minez, thank you.
So I just had an experience or a comment I wanted to share, because I'm seeing all of the comments and questions and a lot of good information to me, especially about the speak up, if there's something going on, if you hear it, like the saying, if you hear it, report it, but to speak up. But as a Black woman in Phoenix who has been a teacher, who's also a practitioner, I had an experience where I went to a yoga class and I was excited. I was ready. I've accepted for years now that I'll probably be the only person of color or Black person, let me say it that way, in the class. So that's not a big deal to me anymore. Mm-hmm. But no one spoke to me in that classroom. I smiled to try to be welcoming, but no one spoke to me, not even the teacher. The teacher went on to do the class, which I thought was a great class until some of the music had nigga in it. It was nigga, nigga, nigga all over in the music. And after the class, I addressed him about it and I said, hey, don't, and I took him to the side, not to be in front of everyone. I said, hey, don't you feel that, maybe that's not a great thing to play in the class? And did you scan the room? Because maybe it's okay when you have all white people in here and you want to get down like that, but you saw me here and maybe I don't appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And he said, oh, well, I really like that song. A lot of that music I really like. And, I have Black friends and we joke around all the time and I'm not fully Black either. And it's okay when other people say stuff to me, and I just don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't see why you should have a problem with it. So I accepted that and said, okay, so obviously you don't need my presence in this classroom. I just feel like you didn't see me, you didn't hear me, you didn't care whether I ever come back to this class again, because I'm not your target market. You don't need me. You have a full class full of Scottsdale white women with the great clothes on. You do not need me in this class, and that's why you don't care whether that offended me or not. So when you say what type of themes we should use, I'm just giving you an example of don't do that. Don't be that person.
Yeah.
And if you see that happening in the class, speak up.
Yes.
Speak up, be an ally and say, hey, I don't think that's very welcoming to everyone in the class. I don't care if there are people of color in the class or not. If you don't agree with it, speak up.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's very, very important. And I seriously appreciate you opening up that conversation. So thank you. Yes, we cannot be playing music. We just can't be playing music like that. Right? Alicia, I saw your hand up. Did you want to piggyback off of that?
No, I just have a question. Because I personally love Beyonce and I throw a lot of her clean versions of songs in my flow list when we need to get our butt kicked, in the last couple of weeks. How is that okay? Is it okay to throw Beyonce in? I'm not trying to target anybody and make sure, but I love Beyonce. I like doing yoga to her, and I use lots of different kinds of music. So that's my intention behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just
I'm going to jump in there. I'm going to jump in there and just say that it's okay to love all types of music, but there's a place and a time for everything, and everything is not for everyone. And as a yoga teacher, if there's a song I like that I love the beat, I'll find the instrumental version of it, right? Or I'll go out of my way to take an hour to find the clean version where that word or those offensive words are not in there. So do the work.
Yeah.
It's a plethora of music out there. It's not hard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and to piggyback off of that, thank you for sharing that story, because that we talked about that. The music is so important. And Black musicians, there are so many of them. I don't understand personally why, as yoga teachers, we're even playing music that would be derogatory, or to have that type of language in a yoga class, right? Like, why are we putting that into our subconscious?
Vibe, yeah.
And why not find other Black artists who uplift the community rather than use derogatory language? Why are we going to bring that in? We have so many amazing artists and musicians out there. Like, find something outside of the box maybe, rather than going to ones that have language that is just totally offensive. And who wants to hear that in a yoga class? I've said things before to teachers too. It's just, and I won't go back. Like, I'm not going to do that. Like, if you're telling me that you don't care, there it is right there, why we're not showing up. Yeah. One more reason.
Yeah, that's a huge part of the problem. You're actually going up and telling them, and they're not listening, right? We have to listen. We have to listen. Who is speaking right now? Who is in front of me telling me something, and am I listening?
Right. Well, and like what was mentioned, Mienez said, I think if I'm saying your name right, for the white students there too, or white teachers, like, you have to say something too. Like, because if nobody's saying anything, if the Black people aren't in the room and the white people don't care, it's just perpetuating the problem. So as a teacher, as a white teacher or student, we just need to speak up.
Yeah, and
it's not acceptable.
Yeah, 100%. We need to speak up. We, just like I promised Cassandra in my newsletter, like, I promise that I will speak up and speak out when I see it and hear it, right? And we have to, right? And it's hard and it's scary, but wanting to change is not enough. Wanting to change is not going to create change. We have to actually back it up with action that we have never done before to create the change, right? And that's going to be hard. Any other questions coming up, or what's coming up for you right now, or as a yoga teacher, what's coming up for you? What are you feeling right now?
Can I say one more thing, Taylor, around the music thing? Not to like beat this up, but for me, I feel like when we play that certain type of music in class, that's really how we see Black people. We see Black people as people who use bad language, as people who treat their women badly, as people who steal or kill or whatever it might be, whatever music you're listening to. That's how I feel when I hear that, especially in classes, because we're so much more than that. And I think because we are in a bubble that we don't see more than that. That's what we see. That's what we hear. That's what we see on the news. So we are just so conditioned to believing that that's who Black people are. And it's so very sad. And we're so much more than that.
Yeah, that's part of the systemic racism, right?
Absolutely.
That's how the system has been built.
Right.
Is to show, and for white people and everyone else to feel that Black people are criminals.
Right.
And that's the work we're dismantling that. And I'm just so, again, look at how many of you are on today. This is powerful. This is beautiful. You're showing up. This is awesome, even though it's uncomfortable. Drop in the chat. The intention for this wasn't so you could get all the answers and leave the conversation feeling good and ready. Do whatever you need to do, right? This conversation was to, maybe it's newer for you. Maybe you've been diving into the work for a while or just recently. But this conversation was to just bring things to the surface that need to be seen, expressed, talked about, heard, to go from there, to say, okay, what can I do next? And just to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Yeah. So Tiana, is there anything else that you'd like to share to close out this conversation?
Just a thank you for holding this space, for holding us in this space to learn from each other. And that it's just great that so many people are here and want to do the work and want to see a change. So that is exciting. So grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, truly thank you for being here and speaking and being open to share your experience. It's needed. And you guys, I hope that you connect with Tiana. You want to drop your Instagram handle in the chat, Tiana?
It's Tiana Hill, Live Well, Be Well on Instagram, Facebook. Perfect. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Love to connect.
So thank you for being here, for showing up, for doing the work, and for stepping into this space. It's not easy, not comfortable, but it's necessary. So I'm here for you. Tiana's around. Connect with her, please. She's amazing. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you. I'm here for you if you ever need to reach out.
Thank you so much for listening in today. I'd love to stay connected with you in between episodes. You can find me on Instagram at Taylor_Ray Yoga and join the free private Yoga Teacher Circle Facebook group, which is full of some pretty awesome and badass yoga teachers.